walk to school every day. Because buses trouble me. Don't ask me why, they just do. Sometimes people, mouth off at me and everything on the bus, but it's just generally that it just troubles me to be on the bus. So I don't like people for some reason. Don't like large groups of people. I'm a loner, I'm kind of shy, so I like to be alone sometimes, especially, with some of the things I think about, it helps to be alone.
The person who you saw in the beginning of this film is Paul, who chooses to walk to school rather than endure the social problems that he faces on the school bus. I'm Dr. Larry Welkowitz.
And I'm Dr. Linda Baker. This film is a product of the Asperger Study Group at Keene State College.
In this film, you will meet children and young adults who share Paul's struggles. We hope that this will help you to better understand the significant features of Asperger's disorder. You will also meet parents who will talk about the challenges in raising these children.
Children with Asperger's disorder have significant social developmental problems, which we're just beginning to understand and identify. In the past, we believed that their strengths more than compensated for their vulnerabilities. As we've taken a closer look, we found that they have difficulties which can cause serious social and psychological problems. Both boys and girls experience these difficulties, but the number of identified boys is higher.
What was it?
Although every child with Asperger's is different, they exhibit some or all of the following.
Poor social communication. They have oddities of speech, including a pedantic style in which the child seems to lecture instead of converse. Special interests. They focus exclusively on one or two areas of interest with tremendous enthusiasm, skill, and attention to detail. Soft neurological signs. These may include physical awkwardness, repetitive body movements such as hand flapping or rocking, and routines. They prefer to follow familiar rules and schedules.
Not just the asshole. It's not just part of it's part of the art in order to get it right.
Children with Asperger's strongly wish to fit in with their peers, but they are simply unaware of the skills needed to do so. They have difficulties learning the normal rules of social interaction and have a tough time interpreting the intentions of others. This may be reflected in poor eye contact, a formal or pedantic speech style which seems to talk at you rather than with you, and a lack of friends. In addition to unusual speech styles, they have difficulty engaging and understanding nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. This lack of social skills can make children with Asperger's feel intense isolation. Like Paul, they may feel cut off from the world.
I just feel like it's kind of like, Voyager. I mean, true, it's a whole ship full of people, but it's the only Starfleet vessel in that Delta Quadrant where they're trapped trying to get back home to Earth. I mean, they're the only vessel out there that feel kind of alone.
So you feel that.
That's kind of how I feel.
In addition, they may cut themselves off from the world in order to protect their self-esteem.
Why would people care if you shook their hand was the chronic question at that age. Why do people care if I look them in the eye? If they care about that stuff, they're stupid. I don't care about that stuff, I'm smarter than that. You take your incompetence and you see it as a form of, purposeful rebellion.
There just aren't any smart people in the world. I mean, there aren't any people that are really smart. Not even me. I'm just moderately smart, not a super smart, because there are none in the world.
So that's what annoys you about it?
Yeah, and most of the people in the world, just about everyone in my school, is pretty stupid.
No kid will keep being friends with me.
But you seem like a nice kid. Why? Why do you think?
Nobody likes me. I don't know why.
Because
Yes.
I like you immediately.
Interacting with other people can be really difficult. He doesn't know how to make friends with other children or to be a friend. And when he was younger, he didn't have an interest in having friends. He really just went to, the beat of his own drummer and wasn't all that interested in what anyone else, what other kids around him were doing. Once he got to be around 7, 6.5 or 7, he started to really want to have friends and doesn't understand why he doesn't have friends, and notices that Nicholas, who's 10, is invited to parties, birthday parties or overnight to a friend's house, and has friends that will come over to play and come over for an overnighter. And Matthew doesn't understand why he doesn't have that, and he wants that.
They don't remember the half hour that Matthew was appropriate. They remember that they were there for 2 hours, and for an hour and a half of it, Matthew was just obnoxious is really a good word for it.
And in what way does he get obnoxious?
Completely, in my opinion, completely unable to catch the nonverbal cues that when someone's standing like this and not responding with anything other than a grunt, they don't want to talk. And he'll just, on and on and on, and even if the kids want to talk about something else, he's still on his tangent. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain that turns a lot of kids off. Mm-hmm.
Children with Asperger's become fixated on 1 or 2 areas of interest. They spend much of their time engaged in activities related to their special interests and may talk endlessly about them, often to the dismay of peers and adults alike.
Octopus and two-spot octopus, all of which are aggressive.
They're all aggressive. Would they hurt a person? So if I see a 2-spotted octopus, I should keep my distance.
Yeah, they don't realize their size. They think that they think they're really big.
Right now his interest is fishing, and we're having a hard time since we've been on school vacation because he wants to fish all day, every day. And I'm very willing to take him fishing. I actually fish with him. Mm-hmm. It's one of the areas where he and I can really interact and bond. And Ken and I have both gotten a fishing license, and I've, I have my own tackle box now and my own rod. But I'm willing to take him for an hour, maybe 3 or 4 times a week for an hour at a time. And that's not enough to satisfy him. He doesn't want to leave after an hour.
I'm trying to play one of the demos in there. It's called Macross, which is an anime which here in the US is called Robotech. It's really hard to follow. My eyes cannot follow the thing. You're a jet, but you can turn into like a half jet, half mech, and then this huge like mech, like robot thing. You have to shoot down all your enemy fighters. The whole thing just spins all over the place. You can't tell where the hell you're aiming. Missiles come by. The guy doesn't lock onto them. He's too busy firing at something else. It's like danger, danger. Like I try to turn him just like a little bit to aim at the missiles, and he goes aiming down here. The missiles are way over that way. I turn him again. He's just like I can't follow the damn thing. I'm just like, well, man, I cannot follow it. I beat it once just by luck. Well, Mom goes, put on your glasses. I said, it's not that. It just spins all over the place, so I can't follow where it's going.
These interests, while they tend to be socially isolating, are easier for them to understand and master. They sometimes have unusual capacity to memorize facts, figures, or dates, or the intricate rules of a computer or role-playing game.
I know Visual Basic pretty well. I also know a medium amount of C++.
Mm-hmm. How about website stuff?
Yeah, I know HTML.
On the one hand, an extremely narrow range of special interests may be socially isolating, but on the other hand, some children may find ways to turn these special interests into career opportunities.
If you're writing a book, if you're writing a novel about, how people interact, you're not just sort of presenting it intuitively. There's an element of that, this just feels right. But mostly you've got to think about the situation, you've got to make it up, and you've got to, how would person A react if placed in this situation? And that's exactly the kind of thinking that you need in order to, if you're not someone who grasps social conduct intuitively, you need to apply to real life. How is this person going to react if I say this? How is this person going to react to this article of clothing? How is this person going to react to a room that looks like this? And I think in a lot of ways, the fact that I never grasped that stuff intuitively helped me out a lot. Sometimes I think people who just sort of naturally are able to communicate with people and figure out what they want and take it easy and don't have to think about any of this stuff in a really cold, detached manner, in some ways don't really get the process that goes into writing a novel.
Next, we'll look at some neurological aspects of Asperger's disorder.
Although there are exceptions, most people with Asperger's avoid team sports because they do not have the coordination or grace to participate effectively. They may find throwing and catching balls extremely difficult and are often the last chosen to join a team. In addition, some display autistic-like repetitive gestures such as hand clapping, jumping, tapping, or rocking. They may be extremely sensitive to touch, clothing, or sound, yet they seem oblivious to other sensations in the environment, such as hot and cold air temperatures. Many parents complain to us of the need to remind their child to put on a coat when it's cold or take it off when it's warm.
It's getting cold now, and he'll go outside in short-sleeve shirt, and it's really cold, and he'll waltz outside, as if, and he doesn't appear to be cold. That's the funny thing, too.
And so it was probably, 50 degrees or 55 degrees in that room. It was cool to begin with. And he was in his diaper, climbed into the cooler, and was sitting there playing with the ice cubes in the cooler. And he wasn't cold. He's always been overly sensitive to things being warm.
Oh, yeah.
He, for a very long time, years, if his food was even what I would consider to be warm enough to be appealing, he would touch it to his lips and say, oh, it's hot, too hot. And then that was it. The meal was over. He wasn't going to eat after that.
It's just that sweatpants are the only kind of long pants that feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've tried jeans before, but I don't like them.
I had to totally learn a new way to walk, learn a new way to talk, learn a new way to carry myself, learn a new way of, pretty much learn a lot of very basic things over again. Because the things that came naturally to me, the kind of movements that I just naturally fell into, were funny looking. Or at least not the ones everybody else had. I had a tendency to just rub my hands across my legs, like so. I'm sure it's on camera, but I walked funny. I think I just slouched. I walked very fast. I was just, I was naturally a tense person. My shoulders were up like this. And it wasn't an easy or instinctive thing for me to get in touch with my body and figure out what I was doing. It was a matter of looking in the mirror a lot and figuring out what I was doing wrong and changing it. And none of it felt natural at first.
In addition to struggling with body language, many need rigid routines to soothe their anxiety.
Children with Asperger's disorder experience increased anxiety when their routines are disrupted. They are attracted to sameness and repetition, much like in autism, except with a different level of severity. For example, these children become anxious or distressed when a school assembly interferes with their normal class schedule, or if a special event results in a later than usual bedtime.
He doesn't like any kind of change in any kind of appointments. If you change his appointment and you call up during the day and you say, well, I've got to cancel the 1 o'clock and make it to 3 o'clock. You've messed up his whole day even though he has nothing else planned.
The symptoms of Asperger's disorder may result in emotional consequences for these children and parents. We will examine these next.
These consequences may include social humiliation. Children with Asperger's often endure teasing and harassment by their peers. Frustrations and destructive fantasies. Many of them harbor frustrations and fantasies of revenge. Parents' efforts and struggles. Parents face confusion and frustration as they attempt to understand their children. They have difficulties in getting help from counselors, school officials, and doctors who also don't understand Asperger's.
Children with Asperger's disorder suffer endless harassment from their peers. In fact, they are often traumatized. They are verbally and even physically assaulted on a regular basis. As a result, they may become anxious and depressed.
I just have a sad, miserable life.
Yeah, I was shoved against lockers. I was, you know, shoved around, you know, knocked down in the halls. You know, people, you know, would just sort of smack you in the hallway. This is in junior high. At an earlier age, like 5th grade, 6th grade, I remember everyone would play dodgeball. And the teacher would sort of encourage me and my 1 or 2 friends who also didn't like to play, who were sort of similar to me, to play dodgeball. And we'd kind of, you know, fine, you know, reluctantly consent. And then inevitably, there would be this crowd of kids in most of the dodgeball court, and I'd be in the corner just trying not to participate, and they'd say, get Ben out, get Ben out. It was sort of this Nazi mob. And then they would pass the ball to the biggest kid who would go after me with the ball. And, you know, the teacher would just sort of didn't know what to do about this, because on one hand, you know, I needed to learn how to participate in social events. It was sort of important. I sort of learned how to deal with this. I'm imagining the teacher's dilemma in this situation. I don't really know what he was thinking. You know, and I remember eventually after that happened a few times, what I would do is I'd just say, I quit, this is stupid, I hate it, I quit, in the middle of the game, and of course that got everyone furious.
The kids are vulnerable in a number of ways. One is they're not tuned into the social activities that are going on. And so other kids pick up that they're different very quickly. Now, in a nice way, some kids can be very positive towards them and maternal and nice and kind. But the bullies, the bad kids, spot them as easy targets.
So how do you get teased?
Well, I just, you know, like, oh, come on, this stuff's for babies, and whatever, and they start, you know, kind of, you know, beating on me just because I like this stuff. Just like, come on, fella, come on. And most of the time, all they gotta do is just kind of back off, and they will back off.
At school, tell me about other kids. Do you get along with other kids, or mostly not? Or
Mostly not.
Tell me about that. What it's like with these other kids.
They bully me all the time. I don't have any girlfriends, and because of that, everyone at school calls me a faggot all the time. And that's not true. And even if I am, so what?
Hate it.
You hate it. What do you hate about it? The teachers or the kids?
How some of the kids tease me, and how people treat me there.
Wow, that must be terrible.
It is.
Does anyone help you with that problem?
Beats me up almost every day. Every day he's there. Beats me up.
Because of the humiliation they suffer, children with Asperger's disorder may become extremely frustrated. This may lead to explosive behavior at school or at home.
Well, the guy was just an ass. He wouldn't let me use my comic book stuff. It's just basically what he used to do. And I just told him off, called him a big sucking piece of gutter trash.
This is your art teacher?
My art teacher, yeah. I called him an egg-sucking piece of gutter trash. You know, you can talk to me like that. Go to your house office. Like, you know, told him off again, and I left the room. I flipped him off, went like this. And then, went like that, which on friends means, you know, fuck off or something like that. That's what Ross does when he wants to swear. And then, because I've been hanging out with my friend Charles too much, I turned around and went like that. Personally means suck it. And then I checked the locker and really hurt my foot.
They may even fantasize getting their revenge against those who have bullied or teased them.
In my visions, you know, they are, you know, some of the supervillains that fought with Sephiroth.
The kids who tease you.
Yeah.
And what would you like to do to them?
Same thing I do in most of the visions. Beat them up, you know, tie them up at some wedding and throw them in the vault. That's a high-security prison for a supervillain.
Their frustrations and fantasies are sometimes expressed through artwork, such as these pictures. These were drawn by one of the children in our film.
Parents of children with Asperger's face many challenges. They may isolate their children more than necessary in attempts to protect them. They often feel frustrated at their child's inability to master the daily rules of social interaction.
As far as local kids, he's never had a friend in the neighborhood. That's, I think, the hardest thing as his mom. It breaks my heart to know that he feels sad because he doesn't have any other kids to play with. And Nicholas, his brother, is a social butterfly and have lots of friends. And, you know, it's painful for Matthew, and I can't fix it for him. And so that's really, I think that's probably the hardest thing, you know, parenting-wise.
I don't get any emotion or feedback from him, you know, and I told him, I said, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what you feel, what you think, and you don't give me anything, you know, back.
On the positive side, many children with Asperger's have adults in their lives who can help them function in the social world.
It is, it's work. It's definite work on trying to pull him out of his shell that he's in. You know, it's one of the most difficult things I've ever done, you know, in dealing with anybody.
These adults can teach them to use their particular talents in ways which are valued by others.
Why you let the...
Yeah, I see that now. Oh, hang on, Matt.
Because parents can become so overwhelmed by the challenges they face, comparative methods become available to them. Next, we will take a brief look at some possible interventions.
While there is little research available on the treatment of Asperger's disorder, there is growing interest in this area. We rely on collective wisdom and anecdotal reports of clinicians and researchers to put forward a few good ideas. We need to protect the child from bullying and teasing, provide them with social skills training, organizational skills training, and motor skills and strength training. We also need to help them extend their special interests to other areas and help them understand their differences and how to use them to their advantage.
For me, they show triumph over adversity. We need people with Asperger's syndrome because their different way of thinking can be extremely original. It's thinking not contaminated or tainted by emotions or socializing. And so their degree of tenacity and determination and single-mindedness and perfectionism and visualization can lead to great advances, not only in science, but also in the arts as well. So they are what I call a bright thread in the rich tapestry of life.
The next step is to increase awareness among educators and other professionals about the nature of this disorder. Interventions by thoughtful, well-informed parents, educators, and mental health professionals will provide these children with what they need to become adults who participate effectively in the world.
It is our hope that within a few years, we will no longer refer to Asperger's disorder as a neglected area of study.
What would make the biggest seafood dinner?
I don't know, what would make the biggest seafood dinner?
Godzilla.
Oh!
Get it?
Yes, I get it. I get it.